This is Bandit, the Atari 8-bit podcast.
This is Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. I'm Kevin Savitz. Dwight Johnson was founder of the Lake County Atari Computer Enthusiasts, a users group based in Waukegan, Illinois. He started the group in April 1983. The group still exists today as a general PC computer users group and is now called Lake County Area Computer Enthusiasts. This interview took place on April 12, 2018.
Okay, I retired from the Navy in August of 1982 and purchased a computer. My first computer was a Timex Sinclair, just to get the hang of what computers were all about because that was a new thing back then. And in November of that year, 1982, I bought my first Atari 800 computer. Along with the Atari package came a little note that says start a user group. So I sent that into Atari and got a letter back on information on starting a user group, and got a building and put out some flyers. And like I said, on April 9th, 1983, the group started.
Nice. So how did you get the word out? How many people were at your first meeting? Did you already know people?
Our first meeting, as I said, was on the cold, rainy day on the 9th of April. We had 6 people show up at the building, and from there we grew. At the largest, we were up to about 175 people.
Nice. And so this is in Illinois, is that right?
I'm retired Navy, and I started, my building that I got a hold of was the community center on the Great Lakes Naval Base, which is actually outside the base, and that's where we started our first meeting at. And we were there for about 4 years until they decided to do something else with the building, and we had to move elsewhere.
Cool. So tell me about those early meetings. Tell me about what you guys did. Were there presentations? Were they more copy parties? Tell me about the vibe.
Well, actually, our meetings is like our model, members helping members. We were all trying to basically trying to find out what we can do with this computer. We had some people who had a little computer experience, more so than others, and we basically learned from each other. But we had presentations at our meetings, demonstrating of different types of computers or different things we can do with computers. We had a public domain library and started out with 5-inch floppies, and then eventually went to the 3-inch. I think that was ST days. But we had a pretty good library. We had paper library, and we were exchanging newsletters with about 30, 40 different clubs across the country. As I was the founder for the first about 2.5 years, we didn't have a board, so I was sort of the president, vice president. We didn't have collect news at that time. We did have a newsletter, which I established and started creating on the Atari 8-bit computer. I think it was a 40-column newsletter. I can't think of the name of the program at this point in time. But that was basically it. And then about 2.5 years later, we decided to have an election, got a board, and as I said, the membership grew and grew. And like I said, we were basically helping each other learn about this computer. I also joined a group in Milwaukee about a month after, because there was a gentleman that came down to our first meeting and told me about the Milwaukee group. So I went to Milwaukee because it was a much larger group and sort of gathered information about how they were running the group, and we were basically somewhat of a clone of their group. And as we grew here again, we learned more about, and we had enjoyed. We got into basically not one of the things we did not do. We did not pirate or copy software. Well, although we had a public domain library, that was one of the things we did not get into, copying programs. Okay.
All right. Good for you. So these were monthly meetings, is that right?
They were monthly meetings, and generally on a second Saturday. Around about 1987 to 81, there was a couple of us started BBSs back in the days. I ran a BBS from 1987 to 91. That's about the time the internet got started, so that's when I shut down. Back in 87, we connected our first Atari Fest. That was a big thing across the country at the time. And we had a Atari Fest in 87, 90. And in '91, we were approached by Atari to hold Atari Fest because they had contacted some of the larger groups in Chicago. There were two larger groups in Chicago, but they played the Chicago politics. So Atari came to us since they had already held two successful Atari Fests, and we had Atari Fest on December 23rd and 24th of 1991, backed by Atari.
Wow.
We had a lot of Atari people come in, including, what's his name, Brody, who was the Atari membership relation person. He came to the meeting, and several other people. We had about 3,000 people show up, people coming in from California and England and Canada.
Wow. That must have been quite a production to put that on.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was fun because there were Atari Fests held all across the country. We had a group of us used to travel around. We went up to went to Canada to Atari Fest. Michigan had a couple. Milwaukee had one, and every year Indiana had Atari Fest. So we used to roam down to Indiana to go to their Atari Fest. Yeah.
Oh, cool. So tell me about your BBS. What was it called?
My BBS was called Pegasus BBS, and as I said, I ran it from 1997 to 1991. We had two other members of the group had BBSs, and together we called ourselves Tri-City Systems. But yeah, that was, and we put up public domain programs for people to download. And we were chatting with members. Matter of fact, I had one of the guys was in the Navy. He was out in I believe Virginia. He used to come on my BBS about 2:00 in the morning. He was surprised when I started chatting when he thought I should be sleeping. But that was fun. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Do you still have an Atari?
I have an Atari 800 and a couple of STs, but they're in storage right now. My Atari 800, which is my original, is in a nice velvet case in my file cabinet, and I will never get rid of that one because that's my first Atari.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah.
So at some point, I think some dark day came, and you dropped the word Atari from the user group name, but the user group still exists. Is that right?
Yes. Two reasons for that. One of the reasons here again we changed it because we had conflicts with a Chicago group called LACAE or something like that. And when we got our not-for-profit status, we couldn't put the Atari in there, so we had to change to Lake County Area Computer Enthusiast, okay, instead of Atari Computer Enthusiast. Yeah, that's the reason we dropped the Atari.
Right, I remember that rule because you couldn't. A nonprofit isn't allowed to advocate for a particular company, I believe, which is the same thing with the BMUG, the Berkeley Macintosh Users Group had to change its name, I think, just to BMUG because they couldn't have Macintosh in the name. That was probably much later after your thing, but interesting. So your groups, you said, still exist, and you still have meetings, and what do you guys do now?
We still exist. Basically, here again, like I said, Atari went away basically about 91, so that's basically when we changed over to a PC group. And we continue on, although our membership has dropped right now. We only have about 67 members, and most of them are seniors. Our motto is still members helping members. Right now, here again, we have a monthly meeting at the public library, so the library is free to us. Between 11:15 and 12:15, we have a help desk, which people can come in. We have two or three of our members who are pretty knowledgeable of computers come in, help them with problems, and then we have our monthly meeting starting at 12:30. We try to do about 5 or 6 presentations a year. If we don't have a presentation, we have what we call Ask the Guru. This month here is our anniversary and our election for our board members. And we have an annual picnic in July and an annual Christmas party in December.
Fun. I have heard a couple places that the internet killed users groups, and I mean now your group is down to, you said, just a few members. Do you think it's true that people are getting their information and their socialization online rather than meeting in person?
That could be the problem. I know a lot of people. Well, we had quite a few kids in the group when we first started, but the kids sort of broke off because they were communicating with each other. And I think a lot of people were the same way. They were able to communicate with people at work or whatever, get their information rather than join user groups. I think our youngest member right now is probably about in the early 50s. Because here again, they still need the help, and they like to absorb information from other peers. Yeah.
Sure. Is there any Atari talk anymore, or is it strictly modern machines?
It's strictly modern machines. Every now and then, being that I'm sort of the assistant editor for the newsletter, I'll pop up and put something about Atari in the newsletter. Like a couple months ago, I stuck an old Atari ad in the newsletter, remembering here again when Atari 8-bit computer cost you $800.
Yeah.
Yeah, things like that. Yeah, I have approximately about 4 original Atari members still in the club. Yeah,
wow.
And every now and we talked about that. The one club I belong to up in Milwaukee, also, they have, I think, 2 or 3 of them people are still some of the original Atari group members.
So you said that you had a public domain library, and I know you've been making the newsletter for forever. Has that stuff been digitized?
I still have a 4-drawer file cabinet full of discs.
Wow. Well, if you want to lend me the discs and lend me the newsletters, I'd be happy to digitize and scan that stuff, and I'd love to put that online before it all rots away.
Our newsletters have been scanned. They're on our website.
Oh, yeah?
I think I go back to the archive, back to the 80s, something with the newsletters. I still have some of the older paper from the early 80s. I still have some of the paper newsletters down in my office downstairs. Yeah.
Yeah, I see on the website there's down to 2007. So, but you guys go back to 86, so there's still a few years missing.
Okay. Well, there's probably some. I haven't scanned them. Usually I scan everything. I did the same thing with some of the magazines, Antec, SG Logs. I've scanned most of them. I found a site that had most of them online. So I've got most of those in PDF format. One of the things I also did back in the Atari days, do you remember the ATR 8000?
Sure. Yeah, it was the CPM add-on box.
Yes, it was. We had a group up in Milwaukee, and I used to go up to that every month, and that was fun. I also got a chance to work with Atari for CES for 3 years, and got to know the people from Atari. Mel Stevens, who was the guy in charge of all the equipment. My group was also, back in the late 80s, we were invited to have dinner with Sam and Leonard Trammell in Milwaukee. They had a court case going up there, and they invited some of our members from my group and the Milwaukee group up to have dinner with them.
Well, tell me all about that.
To meet them. It was fun. But I don't know what the court case is all about. I don't remember at the time, but like I said, we had an evening with them at a Milwaukee restaurant downtown. Got to meet them.
Where'd you go? What you had? Did you get any FaceTime with them?
Yeah, we had FaceTime. I can't think. It was a restaurant downtown Milwaukee. Had a big train around it, and that's the first time I've ever had escargot because they ordered it. But it was interesting. The other thing, too, is that a few members from my group and the Milwaukee group got invited to go to Summerfest Milwaukee one year. Atari provided tickets mainly because back in the days, Atari had the MIDI system, and the MIDI system was running Fleetwood Mac's band or equipment. So Atari gave us tickets to go to see Fleetwood Mac at the Summerfest in Milwaukee. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've had a good relation with Atari. Like I said, we got to meet Bob Brody, who was the membership coordinator at the time. He came to our meetings. Came to one of our meetings, and he also, like I said, he came to when we did the Atari Fest back by Atari. Yep. So we got to meet him a couple of times. Also, as I said, I got to work CES for 3 years, which was also enjoyable.
What did they have you doing there?
We were in charge of help. Well, the first year because of the problem with CES and labor. But the first year we got to set all the equipment up and make sure the equipment was running. We were suit and tie, so we were basically again reps ensuring that the equipment was running and tear it down and put it back. And we worked the 3 or 4 days with CES, and Atari paid all the people, all the members from the clubs, usually about 4 or 5 of us. They paid us in equipment.
Wow!
So one year I got a complete system, a ST and a printer.
Holy cow!
Other than that, yeah. Yeah, that was fun. Atari was fun days. We still reminisce every now and then about the old Atari days. The few of us that are still left.
Do you ever go to any of the retro computing conferences that happen around the country?
Other than the other Atari Fest, that's the only thing we used to go to. You know, like I said, Canada, Windsor, Canada, Michigan, Indiana, Milwaukee. I keep them, being that I'm the founder of the group, I sort of make all the meetings and sort of keep my thumb on what's going on. And I was in and out of the officer position for years. I sat back for about 3 or 4 years ago and just took a side seat. Right now, I'm just the membership chairman, making sure everybody gets checked in and producing membership cards and everything else. But here again, I still have a good say-so on what goes on in the group. I know our president, before he does anything, he usually contacts me and runs it across me.
So this podcast is listened to by people who still use and love their Atari computers. If you could send them a message, and you can right now, what would you tell them?
Keep it alive. I read there's a book out called Breakout that I just recently read about the Atari, and I was surprised about the number of people who are still playing with their Ataris and all the devices that are available for Atari to run CPM and some of the other devices around. I didn't know that was still available. But that is an interesting book to read if you haven't read it yet.
Yes, actually, it's sitting right here on my desk right now. It's a great one.
Oh, okay. I told a few of my members about it, and they read it, but I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It brought back a lot of memories of Atari, because I remember a lot of that, the software, and some of the other things that they talked about in there. Although here again at the end of the book they talked more about gaming, and our group was not a gaming group. We were more of a utility group. The Milwaukee group I also belonged to, and they were a gaming group. They got into games more so than we did. Yeah.
So how did you personally use your Atari? What were you doing with yours?
My main purpose of buying a computer is I wanted something for home inventory, and I used it for the word processor mainly. I taught on the naval base for, actually, when I retired from the Navy, I taught on the naval base for almost 30 years. But before anybody else got computers or anything on the base, I used to go back to my little office and I would type up all my daily quizzes and print them out on my Atari computer. Other than that, basically here again, that was mainly what I used it for. And also, as I said, I did the newsletter for the club for about 14 years. Yeah.
Great. Cool. I think I have what I need. Thank you very much, Dwight.
All right. Appreciate it. Good talking to you.
If you enjoy these interviews and would like to contribute, there are 2 ways you can help. You can help fund these interviews directly by contributing to my Patreon. A small monthly contribution will help offset the expenses of making these oral history interviews. Contribute at patreon.com/Savitz. Or make a tax-deductible contribution to the Internet Archive, a nonprofit digital library that has done incredible things to preserve computer history. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate. Thanks.